Hi, Susan. I see your your name. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Excellent. All right.
And I have started the live stream.
Yes, saw that. Excellent news. And Tobe, just to let you know, I see the agenda just fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherman.
Good morning, Ray. I can see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, very good. It was successful. Just one more time. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Trying to stay on the straight and narrow.
Well, we know how difficult that is for you sometimes. We do have the streaming going, and we are waiting right now. I see Rita just joined. And the rest of us so far are KBOR staff.
And Ray, this is Susan Henry. I did get the meeting invitation accepted by all members. So we'll be waiting on Keith, David, Curtis, and Todd.
Okay, thank you.
Well, while we're waiting on them, I've got some good news to share.
Good.
Last night, my first great-grandchild was born, and I got to be there. And Sean Michael was born at 7:25 last evening, and he weighed in at 8 pounds 15 ounces.
Wow.
Congratulations.
A pretty healthy little kid. So
Well, that's exciting, Rita. Congratulations.
it is. And I was so glad that I was able to be there. I had been sat with her a little while in the afternoon, and then others came in, and they only allow so many people in. So I excused myself and went to choir practice. And right as choir practice ended, my son texted me and said, she's starting to push. And so I hurried right over and I got there. And so I got to be there to watch him being born. Bless his heart.
That's wonderful. What hospital?
Wesley.
Okay. Well, that's good news and always exciting. Welcome a new one into the world.
Absolutely.
So are we seeing any other TA members?
Yes, sir. I see Keith and David so far.
Okay.
Gentlemen, if you could let us know, can you hear us okay? Can you see the agenda okay?
Yes, on both.
Yay.
Yes, on both.
Fantastic. Good morning.
Yeah, same here. So we're waiting on Curtis and Todd, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
However, if they do happen to join late, you do have enough folks, and it looks like Todd just did sign on.
Okay, great.
Yes, good morning. Sorry, I was trying to remind myself where the mute switch was here. So I'm on. Thank you.
That's all right, Todd. This group, and they've discovered that if I talk too long, they find the mute switch. So
Yeah, we use Teams here at Textron. So it's only a few times a year I use Zoom. So I have to refresh my memory here.
all right, I'll call the meeting to order, the Kansas Post-Secondary Technical Education Authority Budget and Finance Committee. 8:30 a.m. Thursday, March 14, 2004. Certainly welcome to all. Glad you could be on the Zoom with us. And the next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. And those minutes are from our August 17th meeting, 2023.
I'll move to approve those minutes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, minutes approved. Moving on to our discussion agenda. Sharman, you are front and center.
Thank
And
you.
lots of stuff. So
Yes, sir. Yes,
take it
sir.
away.
There it is. So first and foremost, in your packet and on the screen, you have an issue paper for reference concerning the AY 2025 Excel and CTE fees submitted. Now, after the TEA met on January 25th, each institution was sent a spreadsheet, including their programs for which the TEA had further questions. And these were specifically programs in which the fees increased more than $150 total between AY 24 to 25. And then situations where your fee rates were higher than the median fee rate for the program area. So we looked at all 25 aligned programs, and then we had a couple of additional programs where we see the highest participation that are not aligned. Great examples are certified nurse aid and medication aid. So the institutions were asked to provide some justification and rationale for the higher fees. And as the feedback was being received, we noticed that several institutions were indicating that their fees were not accurately reflected. So what we did is we reopened the data collection for them for everyone from February 21st through March 1st to allow everyone to make any final updates that they had identified during this review. So in addition to this issue paper, we have 3 additional spreadsheets that we sent you to review. One included the institution responses for the questions specifically asked. And then the other 2 spreadsheets are actually what you already reviewed during the TEA meeting, but they've been updated based on any changes that the institutions made. So we have several spreadsheets there. I would not suggest walking through each one of them, but if we do have any specific questions, we could certainly try to address those. And then in addition, I don't want to forget that we did have a couple of additional questions at the bottom of the issue paper that we also wanted you all to weigh in on. So we would stand for any questions.
Okay, what questions does anyone have regarding this for Sharman? Sharman, I wonder, I don't know if you have this information at your fingertips, but I'm hearing someone. Say you, Todd?
Yeah. Well, I was going to wait till you finish, Ray, but I guess I did have a question. I think I was I'd focused in on the Wichita area or the WSU Tech A&P school, just because that's our primary path to get A&Ps here locally. I have read their responses. I guess my question is, how is that being covered in the past? Because it appears to be that they're saying that they're now including the cost of the FAA testing for them to receive their license. And that's always been in, I believe the final outcome for anybody who attends that would be to become licensed at the end. So maybe it's just a matter of they're including it in the fees now, whereas the student had to come up with that money up front at the end during testing. And if that's the case, then I would be okay with that.
I'm looking at their responses as well, and I'm not seeing additional information to answer your question. We could certainly reach out to them and ask that as well. Would you want to see that on this form for the TEA, or would it be sufficient to provide that response in kind of general terms and not necessarily update the spreadsheets? Which way would?
I guess me personally, I'm fine with just a general response. I'm relatively new to some of this stuff. So if there's some other tentacles here that it has impact that I'm unaware of, somebody else with more experience, please chime in. I just, it was such a significant increase, and it is important to us to make sure that we don't handcuff this pipeline here locally. So if it's just a trade-off of when those fees occur and when they get paid, that's understandable.
Gotcha. Well, we would be happy to reach out and get some more information on that.
And Sharman, if it's easier, I can reach out to him. I mean, I have relationships with them there at the school. If that's allowed, through this process, I'm happy to do so, and I can respond back to the committee. But that just would like a little bit further clarification there.
Sure. I think that would be fine as well. We would be more than happy to do that. But you are certainly welcome as a TEA member to ask the institutions any questions that you have. Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
yeah, this is Ray. I think that, first of all, Todd, that's a good question. I think it's a question that many of us have, and I think it's a question that is very appropriate to ask the why, and then what was happening prior to this time. But I think it could be a question that comes to, or the discussion regarding the answer and question to the whole TEA. If nothing else, I think it's a good example, because that's not the only program that, and earlier it was zero, and now it's at times a pretty big number. So it could be an example that leads to further questions to other institutions as well. So, and I personally, I hope that institutions don't take offense to TEA members saying, well, help me understand why. I think that's fair. And I think that's part of our task as TEA members, and are responsible and being certainly responsible to the state on how this money gets spent and who's being charged. I'm glad that you put up on the screen the allowable fees and unallowable, because I think it's a good reminder to us as far as TA members, because sometimes we forget. So okay, other questions, comments from TEA members? I'm hearing someone, but I don't know if it's feedback or what it is.
at times.
Ray, this is Dave Rice. I like Todd's question, and I think maybe the answer to that would pertain to a lot of other institutions and other programs. I happened to run into one of the presidents, and I think that maybe they were trying to keep fees low and they were trying to cover the fees for the students, and because of the increases in the last few years, they just could no longer do it. So it looks like a huge jump. And then I also know that from time to time, schools are offering the same course or program to multiple high schools. And so you have different high schools that are willing to pick up the fees and sometimes not. So you get a lot of variance there. But I don't know, Carmen, when I was in it 5 years ago, I don't think all the schools understood what you were after. But I get the sense now that that's better. So I don't know what your feeling is on that they now know what we're looking for, and maybe it's getting better and maybe it's getting more accurate.
I do think so. I do think so. We have spent quite a bit of time trying to clarify exactly what we ought to be seeing. So we know that this is not tuition. These are additional fees. We have tried to clarify for everyone that, what you would want to be submitting would be fees that are the norm, if you will. There for a while, we were submitting fees that we just might charge just in case and wanted to get approved. But when additional questions were asked, the answers were, well, no, we don't really charge those fees to everyone. So we tried to put some additional language around, for example, you would want to include fees that more students than not are being charged. And we know that there are all sorts of different arrangements with the USDs and so forth. Another way that we've sort of phrased it is, if you were a parent and you were getting ready to embark on your student taking these free courses, what fees would you want to make sure that you were planning for, to try to sort of get that a little bit clearer than just this might be a fee that we might need to charge in certain circumstances, to try to kind of narrow this down more to this is what the typical student should expect to pay in fees. And I do think that through that process over time that we have gotten to a clearer listing, if you will, from everyone. What I was going to also say in regards to that first question with Todd, and then our discussion since then, if we felt like we needed to and we didn't feel like we quite had the information yet, we could ask the institutions to provide a general comment, if you will. And David, to your point, what changed for us in terms of we were able to cover the fees before, or we were able to absorb them differently, or what have you, and now we're not. If that would be helpful to have from each institution, just, something, an additional comment from them in general about their programs. I think that we have, program by program, we have a spreadsheet of that, but perhaps that would be valuable to add to the discussion when we bring this to the TEA.
I think it would be very valuable, Sharman. I think in this case, more information is needed, more explanation is needed. And I think it will help all the TA members, again, to have a better understanding of why we've seen such increases at points in different institutions. And that's how we're trying to get to, is it's not a gotcha, it's just help us understand, quite frankly. So I think, yes, I would agree. I think it'd be very helpful, Sherman, to have a high level response from the institutions. So,
And Carmen, it might be as easy as just alerting Ryan and Jim, they're at the meetings anyway, to be ready with that question, and maybe they can answer it for us. And then my last thing, if you're a post-secondary student in going into one of these programs, I think you have the expectation that you're going to have to pay, and there are going to be fees involved. But post-secondary students also can apply for financial aid, student loans, so forth. My concern are the high school students. If you're a junior in high school and you're going into one of these programs, and the state picks up the tuition, but then you're hit with a $1,500 fee or whatever, I think that's probably hurting access. And I'll just take diesel mechanics, for example. When I was with Highland, a junior going into that program, you could buy the tools if you wanted to, but our institution had the tools available, so you could use our tools if you didn't want to. So I just think things like that arrangement can help those high schools. The Excel and CTE and Senate Bill 155 was a win-win-win for the state, the students, and the schools and the colleges. And I just want that access to stay there for those high school students, because at my institution, we saw so many kids, so many superintendents say that program saved this kid, because if he'd had to stay in high school, he'd have never made it through. But by going to your institution half a day, he's now become certified in welding or whatever, and is able to get a job. And so I just want to keep that going and not restrict access on that high school part.
No, and I would just say too, we couldn't agree more. So one thing I do want to clarify, these fees, the fees that you're looking at are to be only what are charged to high school students. Any regular post-secondary student fees should have been removed by now. That was something that early on we experienced some confusion with. So these fees that the TEA reviews and approves, these are only for high school students. And then additionally, I would also just mention, and we can get some additional information and provide that as well, regarding several grants that we've offered to specifically help provide those, like the classroom sets of tools, things like that, that do often present a barrier for many students when they're getting ready to take these programs. And we can definitely get that additional information in front of the TEA as well, if we would like.
And yeah, this is Ray again. David, all good questions and good points. I appreciate that. And especially, I think it would be very appropriate to reach out and connect with Ryan and Jim. I saw where Jim sent a note or whatever it is. And so I think having their response collectively of who they represent, I think would be very beneficial to all the TEA. So, but good questions and fair questions. So much in my mind, and I think we've touched on it already, is how this program, which is, I agree, it's been extremely successful, all winners, but how it is sold to the student, and keeping in mind a high school student, and maybe at times sitting there with their parents, that'd be a good thing, or a parent, to help the student fully understand, because what they hear, it's free. Guess what, mom and dad? It's free. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So it's how it's sold and how it's communicated and provided to the student. I think, that goes a long ways to having the student being prepared, the parents being prepared. And I like you, David, I don't want this to be a barrier, a roadblock for these high school students, because this can be, first step forward in a real career for these individuals. So we don't want to put a roadblock up right, from day one. So But anyway, good thoughts on that. And I would ask if there are other TA members that want to respond. Any questions? Sharman, I'm wondering, as you, because you're the one that had to sort through all this stuff, in the fees the increases you saw, was there any common thread or theme or thing that kept reappearing from program to program?
I would not say so. I think it really depends. It varies from institution to institution, and it often varies then within the institution from program to program, depending on some of the partnerships they might have with BNI, and working with them to get, tools are one of the things that are certainly very expensive in most programs. There are some institutions and some programs where some of those online educational resources lend themselves a little bit better to the program than in others, as far as supplying like a textbook kind of situation, that they might be able to either keep the fee very low, or they might be able to mitigate it entirely. We did see several institutions say, to David's point too, we previously were able to somehow absorb the cost of the textbooks, and now we're not. And so this is the reason that this increased. We also know certainly the economy in general has certainly seen inflationary issues over the last several years. So the cost of everything has increased as well. But I don't think that there's quite enough yet of a common theme. I would need to sort the spreadsheets a little differently, I guess, to maybe, instead of sort it by institution, when we sort it by program, see those things as well. But it really varies.
I appreciate that. And I'm not asking for give you additional work. Just so don't do that.
Don't want more, and you don't want more spreadsheets?
And I don't want more. I know that. So,
No.
But I just was curious, because I know that, as I kind of breezed through it and then went back and tried to breeze some more, you hit on a textbooks showed up a lot.
Yes.
And I did think that some institutions that in early days were willing to absorb these fees are not in a position to continue to do that. But still, there were some that, as I looked this morning again at 24 versus 25, some that in 24 that were zero, 25, some of it over $2,000. And we still, I guess my point, we still saw a lot of red on that report. It was better, not as much, but the ones like that, I just have to try to understand, how do we go from $0 to $2,000? And maybe you can help me with that, Sharman.
I would mention that in some cases, you would see that because it was a new program. So it was not previously offered in AY24, and it became available in AY25. So you do see every once in a while, there are a few of these where it's reflective of a new program being offered. Typically, what I believe I saw, though, is when that happened, the institutions indicated this is a new program. We didn't offer it in AY24, and so these fees are new fees for a new program.
Okay. See, that's why we need you, Sharman, to educate us on this. It helps put it in perspective. So, any other TA members have a comment, question? Rita, what are you looking for from us as far as next steps from this committee?
Basically a recommendation that we take this conversation on regarding the CTE fees onto the discussion agenda for the full TEA meeting on the 28th so that everyone would have an opportunity to review and have comments, and we would have an opportunity to get some additional consolidated responses from both the community and technical colleges.
Curtis moves.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 I would like to just quickly make sure that we can accurately reflect this. So I see in the chat, if everyone could also take a look at that. We also have President Jeanette and President Ruda that had specifically made some comments, and they're requesting some very specific clarification of exactly what the information is that we want to see still from the institutions. So my notes, what I wrote down is we'd like to see a general comment from each institution to explain what they're experiencing and why they were previously able to cover fees and are now unable to. And then we also mentioned that we would maybe like a comment about how the colleges communicate the program availability and any additional fees to students and parents. I'm not sure if I've captured what the committee would like to know. Does that seem close?
David, do you have anything to add?
I know, Carmen, you said in the past, these are supposed to be just fees that the students pay.
Yes, just high school students. Yes.
Yeah, but I'd like to ask the question again. Are these fees being picked up by anybody else? Are some school districts paying these fees for their students? Or some other agency, or maybe there's even a business in the area or industry in the area that picks up. I mean, are these students that every kid has to pay in order to get in, or are there alternatives for them?
And I would just offer up that will depend. That will be different for each institution, for each one of our colleges, and it will be different for each one of our colleges based on their own relationships with a variety of USDs. It may be, I'm looking at my spreadsheet here, and I'm looking at comments from Seward. Seward may have a situation where certain programs are being taken by students in certain USDs. So a welding student might have a different experience, pardon me, depending on which USD they come from.
And I understand that, and I don't need any details. I just would feel better if the colleges said, yeah, there are some alternatives. A lot of our districts are paying those, or there's another agency that's paying a lot of those. And that would help me feel better. And I don't need to know the details for every program and every institution. I just kind of want a general answer.
I think it's a good question, and I think it's important that the representatives, Ryan and Jim, are the ones that answer that question and answer the other questions too. So I think it's a fair question. Anyone else want to weigh in on that as far as helping to put together some questions for Jim and Ryan as they prepare? Well, let's start there.
Okay.
If everyone agrees, and we may expand on that when it comes time in full TEA in our discussion. So
And I'm not trying to hold this up. I know that the institutions need to get this information out to the high schools, but a couple questions I had, if they can answer that would help me a lot.
Yeah, and you're not holding it up. I think, again, I think it's very appropriate and fair questions to ask. It helps us in making a better decision as TEA members. So nothing wrong with that. Okay, we did have a motion, second, and it passed. So we will move this to the discussion agenda of our TEA meeting. Any other comments before we move on to the next agenda item?
I do, Chair Frederick, once everyone else has gone, I do have one other question to add.
Okay. And when are you gonna ask that question?
Well, I was gonna wait and see if any of the other TEA members had any further comments for you before I jumped back in.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to take another look at the issue paper itself because we did have a couple of other scenarios that we would like the TEA to weigh in on. When you, and Tova, if you'll scroll a little bit further, so we have our list of allowable
Going.
fees and the unallowable fees.
Keep going.
And then below that,
going.
actually on the last page of the issue paper, what we have are a couple of scenarios that these have not been previously specifically approved fees. Our list of approved and unallowable fees, on the unallowable list, it says the very last thing says, if the fee is not on the allowable list, then it's not allowable. But we've seen a few fees that we wanted to get some clarity around and see how the TEA would like to handle them. So the very first one, and if you look in the institution fee description, which is the third column, it's a course materials fee, and it explains that it's for potentially ebooks, physical books, or a combination of the two, and the rate is $20 per credit hour. Typically, we don't see fees submitted quite this way. Typically, what we see is here is the e-subscription and the name of the e-subscription and the dollar amount. Here is the textbook and the textbook name in the fee description and the dollar amount. And so we wanted to bring these forward to see if we're comfortable with the fees being charged. This is specifically, again, to high school students. This is not regular post-secondary students, but just for high school students, seeing these with maybe a little less information in the fee description, but the rate being charged at $20 per credit hour or something like that.
Okay, I see the information. So are you asking us to include this or this to be included in our discussion part of our TA meeting?
Well, I would say yes, and it may also assist the TEA if we had a recommendation to make about that when we bring it forward. I guess the question is, so typically when we see fees that are charged a per credit hour rate, these are more often a tuition type fee. That's right.
Tuition fee.
Right. So what our understanding that the TEA has wanted up until now is a little more specificity about this. This is a specific textbook. This is a specific e-subscription and what have you. So we would like to know, we handled these fees internally to bring these forward, to have the TEA say essentially, yay or nay, are we comfortable with the fees being assessed in this manner? And then additionally, we also have some that have been submitted as printing costs. So home health aid, much of that state curriculum is online. So students can access it online, and it's ubiquitous across the state, obviously. But we also have some printing costs for a variety of things, and printing costs aren't quite the same as a textbook or an e-subscription. So we wanted some clarity around does the TEA feel comfortable with those fees, and would we approve those?
Any comments, response? I think it enters into a pretty gray area, quite honestly, or if not new territory. And so some of these, just like you mentioned, the per credit hour rate and also printing costs. I need help with that. What does that mean? And does it even really, I mean, where does it actually fall? And is it being used to, mask itself as a textbook? I don't know. Rita, any comments do you have?
Well, go ahead, David.
In that particular example, I understand the concern about printing costs, but at the same time, if they're printing out a lab manual or workbook and saying, we're just charging the student our cost to get it printed, I'm okay with that. I mean, I think they're probably saving the student some money rather than buying, but that's just my thought.
Well, and that's the primary reason that staff has brought this forward, is because we just want clarification on whether you as a TEA consider these as valid, acceptable expenditures, and so that doesn't, it kind of, I don't want to say, takes away the determination based on just what staff thinks. That's why we brought some of these forward, is to kind of gauge whether or not TEA members see them in the same light that staff does before, and it will make some difference on some of them. And as you look at the second half of that chart, we also are looking at certification fees, and we have multiple programs for which OSHA is the credential, and as you can see, there is a wide range of costs for OSHA, the same OSHA certifications. Now, towards the bottom, there's some OSHA 30s, and those might be a little more expensive, but for an OSHA 10 certification exam, it should cost pretty much the same across our feeling is it should be pretty much the same across the state, getting the exam itself. Now, if there is some, as you can see, there is obviously some variation there. And one option might be to just set a cap, find out exactly what it costs and put a cap on it, or require no more than, you can't charge the student any more than X. That would be something that the TEA might want to consider. But that's why these minor adjustments, keep in mind, in the end, will make a difference on the totals that the high school students are paying.
Well, I would say that we do need to just, at least my opinion, just include this in our discussion in our TEA meeting. And maybe it is something that Jim and Ryan can give a response to, knowing that that this committee, at least, some individuals feel these are very appropriate questions to ask and concerns on our part. Does that make sense to everyone? I see heads nodding. So, Charmin, is that a good enough response to you?
I think so. And so we will definitely include this for the TEA. We will also, for Jim and Ryan, we will try to encapsulate all of the different questions and send that to you so that you can gather that from the institutions. something that we may consider, and we can certainly explain it in the TEA as well. Through this re-review process, one of the things that I've identified with these OSHA fees is that everyone has, for the most part, included this as a certification fee, but some of these fees listed here actually include the e-subscription that they use for the online OSHA coursework itself. So a potential solution here may be to direct institutions to separate the subscription cost from the actual certification cost, so that as the TEA evaluates that, we can actually see what that difference is. That may, and we can explain that in the TEA as well, if that's helpful.
Okay. Any other concerns, questions from TEA members? Are you all comfortable taking that approach?
Yes, Curtis is.
Good.
Yes, from Todd.
Very good. Sherman, anything else you need from us?
No, sir.
Good.
I think we're all right.
All right. Thank you, Sherman, for, man, what you do with this stuff. They'd have to put me somewhere. I don't think I could do this. So anyway,
It's a lot of spreadsheets.
no kidding. So, all right, we're going to move on. And next item on the agenda is AY 25 TA committee and TA meeting calendar. April? Sounds like.
Unfortunately, April is ill today, so you're still with me.
Okay.
And Rita, of course. But what we wanted to do is just get in front of the committee. This is a pre-look, if you will. We have the meeting schedule for the board meetings. It's not usually finalized until their retreat in July, but they have a preliminary schedule. So from there, we sort of work backwards to create a schedule for our committees and for the TEA from that, so that we can make sure that anything that moves forward to the board, that we have plenty of time to get that ready and so forth. So this is, like I said, this is a preliminary look. This does not require action, but we would like everyone to take a look and see, does this seem reasonable? Do you have any questions? Is there anything that stands out that we might need to further address? And Rita, if there's anything else that you would add?
No, just basically if you can kind of take a quick look at your own personal calendars. Do you see anything that might cause an issue? Also, we have the committee meetings have been pretty standard on a certain day and a certain time. Do you still want to do is that something you want to continue? This is primarily, and then the last chart is just kind of so that if this is a chart that is developed for anybody who is wanting to start a new program, so that they know by what day we have to get their paperwork into us when the program alert goes out, which is the start of the 10-day comment period, and the curriculum, the program curriculum meetings, committee meetings have to happen at a certain time in order to get them through the TEA, in order to get them through KBOR. So that's the pipeline of dates. And this is just we're going to have these on March 28th also as just a heads up. Just see if there's anything that you see that might be a conflict or so these are just kind of proposed. We don't actually have to vote on these until the May meeting, but we wanted to get out ahead of these, and you get a little preview before everybody else gets a preview on March 28th.
Okay. Very good. So we will receive this in our packet for our full TEA meeting. Is that correct? And there'll be a report or discussion on that, much like what you just presented.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Any other matters from committee members that we need to talk about? Any other matters from staff?
No, sir.
Rita, you're smiling, I think, so.
I am smiling. Yeah, I think we've got enough information that we'll do some follow-up work and have try to have as much information ready for you when we meet on the 28th.
All right, very good. Just a quick reminder, our next committee meeting, Thursday, April the 11th, 8:30, same time. And so please get that on your calendar. And we're moving closer to, we should anticipate a new VP sometime in the near future. And so that, and then we have our election of officers for next session for our TEA. So, there's still some unanswered questions at this point, but, we'll get there, no doubt. So any other comments? If not, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you to all for your participation and the good work staff's doing on this. So we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. See y'all.